Some people suffer loudly. Franz Kafka suffered quietly. He went to work, answered letters, he sat in offices, he smiled politely. But inside, Kafka often felt trapped by life itself. And more than a century later, millions of people still recognize themselves in his fear. Today, we use the word Kafkaesque. It describes situations that feel confusing, exhausting, absurd, impossible to escape. Endless paperwork, systems that don't listen, feeling powerless inside modern life. But Kafka didn't invent these feelings as fiction. He lived them. Kafka was born in Prague in 1883, and one relationship shaped him more than any other. His father. Kafka saw him as overwhelming, loud, demanding, emotionally intimidating, in a heartbreaking letter he never sent. Kafka described feeling small around him his entire life, as if nothing he did was ever enough. And maybe many people understand that feeling more than they want to admit. The feeling that you are always being silently measured. Despite dreaming of writing, Kafka spent much of his life working at an insurance office. Every morning, paperwork, schedules, bureaucracy, routine, and slowly, modern life began consuming him. At night, exhausted after work, Kafka would stay awake writing alone in silence, not because it made him famous, not because anyone expected it, but because writing was one of the few places he felt alive. Then Kafka wrote one of the strangest stories in literary history, the Metamorphosis. A man wakes up one morning transformed into a giant insect. Absurd, disturbing. But the story was never really about insects. It was about alienation, about becoming someone society no longer values. It's about feeling disgusting, unwanted, and emotionally invisible. And perhaps that's why the story still feels painfully modern. Because many people secretly fear, if I stop being useful, will anyone still care about me? Kafka doubted himself constantly. He worried about disappointing others, about failing, about wasting his life. Even love terrified him. He became engaged multiple times, yet repeatedly sabotaged his relationships through fear and uncertainty. Kafka longed for closeness. But he also feared losing himself, that conflict. Wanting connection while fearing vulnerability still exists in many people today. In another famous novel, The Trial, a man is suddenly arrested without ever being told his crime. No explanation. No clarity, no escape. The system itself becomes the nightmare, and strangely, many modern people understand this feeling too, not necessarily with governments, but with life. Feeling judged, feeling behind, feeling guilty without fully knowing why. Kafka never believed he was truly great. Before he died from tuberculosis at only 40 years old, he asked his friend, Max Brod, to burn his unpublished manuscripts. Imagine that. One of the most influential writers in modern history believed his work should disappear? Thankfully, his friend refused. Otherwise, the world might never have known Kafka at all. Kafka's life reminds us of something uncomfortable. Many people walking through ordinary life carrying invisible emotional weight. They go to work, they answer messages, they continue functioning. But inside they feel anxious, lost, disconnected, or quietly overwhelmed. And maybe that's why Kafka still matters, because he gave language to feelings many people struggle to explain. The fear of not being enough, the exhaustion of modern life, the loneliness of being human. But perhaps Kafka's greatest lesson is this: you do not need to fully conquer your anxiety to create something meaningful. Sometimes, simply continuing despite it is already an act of courage. And maybe that's why people still read Kafka today. Not because he had all the answers, but because he understood the feeling of being human in a complicated world.